Hey guys, what's going on today? Today I'm going to show you guys how to change the inner and outer axle shafts on your MAXX. We just did a couple of videos on replacing the upper and lower front and rear A-arms. If you guys are looking for that video, go back to the MAXX playlist and it should be right before this video. So let's go ahead and get this going. Go ahead and take your shirt off. And we're going to go ahead and start with the front ones first. Next video, we'll cover the back. And I'm only going to show you guys how to do one because the opposite side is the exact same procedure. So I'm not trying to tie you guys time up. So let's go ahead and start by taking off his front tire. We're going to do the front right. So I'm going to put a tire under there for now. Tools today, you're going to need a 2.5, small pair of pliers possibly. Not a bad idea to have a magnet. And then your driver of your hand driver or whatever you want to use. That's it. So let's start by taking off this little guy's front tire. So we'll take it off and we'll put him over there. And you don't have to pull the bumper or nothing like that off for doing this here. I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible and to show you guys how to get this done. This is something you can easily do out in the field when you're playing and you break something. Okay, grab your 2.5mm. Alright, now let's go ahead and remove some pins. Let's remove 3 pins. This one here is a 2.5. This one here is a 2.5. And then you're going to have one on the back side of this lower arm that is also a 2.5. So let's go ahead and get those pulled out. I'm going to go ahead and start with removing the back one first. I'm going to use my Hypertough because I can get in between this tire here and the arm. Okay, so we're going to remove that one. I'm not going to take it out just yet. And now let's go ahead and remove the upper inner pin, which is right here. You can get right to it. Like that there. And now we're going to remove this one here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and remove this 2mm screw for the shock. So chuck up your tube. Let's pull it out. Alright, we'll let it sit. Now, 2mm screw right here on the outer tie rod where it connects to the knuckle. So let's go ahead and pull that loose. Okay, and we'll leave that in there for the moment. Okay, now, this pin here, to get it out, you do have to pull the bumper off. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie to you guys. So let's go ahead and pull this bumper off real quick. And if you guys can figure that out on your own, then you can be my guest. I'm going to go ahead and show the rest of the audience who hasn't done this before. So you've got 2 screws there, and then you've got another one right here that need to come out to remove that bumper. 2.5mm. So let's go ahead and chuck that up and pull those out. Okay. Pull these. And this one. Alright, and then it'll make it a little easier if you go ahead and grab those screws out of there for now. And those are short screws on the bottom of that bumper. This top one here, this is going to be long, so you can't mix them up. And then just go ahead and just wiggle that out of there. And then, what I recommend is go ahead and take and put your screws back where they were. Just so it helps you a little bit with memory on reassembly. It's not like you're going to have a ton of screws out of here. We're pretty much ready to take it apart. So, okay, and we'll just take and put that aside. Okay, now let's pull this thing apart. So we've got all our screws out, and they're just sitting in there, right? So let's go ahead and start with a shock. So we're going to take this little 2mm out, and it's a little 3mm screw like that. Well, I said 2mm, I meant by the head. So it's a 3mm screw. Take and set it aside. Let's go ahead and pull our upper inner pin. Pull that. We'll pull this one. You can probably get away with just pulling this one here to get to the axle, but for the sake of the camera viewing and all that, I want you guys to be able to see very well. So now that arm will just come right out of there. And for the time it takes, you may as well just take it all out, in my opinion. Okay, let's say now the lower one. We'll pull it out from the back side. Remember, it's in here, so pull it right out of there. So what you got is you got this medium one on the bottom. Right here is a medium one. Then you got this really long one that goes in the top up here. And then you got this shorter one that goes here. So now that that's out, And pulling that shock, I mean, you don't really have to, but what it does is it lets that arm relax a little bit more. And then now, last but not least, you've got this screw in here. You can go ahead and just pull that out. Also a 2mm, and it's the same exact size as the shock screw. You see there? So just pull that out. Now that you pull this out, you get that, and it comes right out of there. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish getting this inner one out real quick. Okay, so as you spin this, you see that there is a small screw right there. What that is a grub screw or a set screw. You see it in there? All you've got to do is pull that out and it comes right out. To turn this, you're going to have to get the other side off the ground a little bit to get it where you need it. I'm going to try and get it pulled right there. So what that is a 1.5mm. So let's go ahead and chuck up our 1.5 and we'll reach in there and get it out. Oh, it's actually a 2mm, guys. I'm sorry. 2mm. My eyes fail me. So see, that looks like it'll come right out right there. So you can either reach in there with a small pair of needle nose or your magnet. I reach in with some needle nose and grab it, take it out. So see, that's what that little grub screw or that pin looks like. Take and lay it in your dish. And now this axle will come right off. That's it. That's all there is to taking your front inner axle out. So you got your brand new axle. Say you split this one right here, you twisted it off, whatever the case is, you're going to put it back on the same exact way. Line your hole up there, and then you're going to take your screw, your grub screw, and put it right back in. Now, the thing is, the screw goes into plastic. It threads into the drive shaft itself. You see can you see the threads there? Not really, but it screws into plastic, so it doesn't really do any good to put any Loctite on here because it's not going to cure. And really, I don't have much trouble with these coming out. Actually, to be honest with you, just don't strip them. So go ahead and line your screw hole back up, just like that. And you want your threaded hole to be on the top, not like that. So threaded hole on top. You take your screw and put it right back in. And just be sure that you don't strip this. Just like everything else. Common sense. Put it back in. You think it's getting tight, let off. And I mean, that's all I'm going to tighten it. That's it. So now you've replaced your inner half shaft. So now let me show you guys how to do the outer. Okay, so now you got your assembly here. This is what it looks like. So first, you are going to need like a little flathead screwdriver or something. You're going to need to reach back here and pry this wheel hex off of there. So just reach back here, just give it a little twist on both sides, work it off evenly, and then it'll come right out. Don't lose this little pin. If you lose that little pin, you're in trouble. So put that aside, just like that there. Okay, now your axle, at this point, you don't have to pull these out or anything. It'll pull right out. It may be a little stuck, but it'll push right out just like that. Now you see how it came out with that bearing? You also got another bearing in the front there. So if wherever you've broken this or whatever's happened, be sure you get that bearing off of there. And what you can do is just reach right inside here. There's a little notch. You can twist with a screwdriver, roll it, twist, and just keep doing that, and it'll come off of there. If you get it to come off straight, it comes off even easier. It's binding up. It's binding up because it's coming off more on one side than the other. There, your bearing comes right off. And on a used one, it's going to come off a lot easier, trust me. So now you've got that. So when you put your new axle in, be sure that you've got your bearing on there. So you're going to take your bearing off your old one, put it back on your new one. Be sure it's all the way on, nice and tight like it should be. You see how there's still a little gap in there? It's not all the way on yet. So just take and be sure that it's all the way on. I'm just going to take a screwdriver here and push it. There we go. Now it's fully seated all the way on. And then you just simply, you literally take and you push it right back through there. At this point, of course, inspect your bearings, be sure they're smooth. You got another bearing here. Inspect that one to be sure it's smooth. And then you're going to take and put it right back through there. So put it back on just like that. It pushed that bearing out on me, so I just take and push it right back into the wheel hub. And then you're going to have your little cross pin here. Put that cross pin in there. Hold it sideways so it doesn't slide out on you. And then all you do, of course, is line up this little slot with it and push it on, and it'll snap into place. Okay, we got it all back in there, and then you put it back on the truck just like it was. So let's go ahead and grab our truck back over here. Alright, now when you slide your half shaft back onto the other half, you're going to have an index mark. You see how that one is straight across? And you got one on here. You see it? I always line them up. So this one's straight across, so we'll put this one straight across, and it'll slide right back on there. If it's not lined up, it will not engage like that. See, I'll turn it, and it just flat out won't go. If these have wear on them, it'll slide back on, but it'll be really tight, and you don't want that. So be sure they're indexed, and be sure it slides freely. So now you've got that back on, you can go ahead and set it in your lower arm, and you can't put it in there upside down because it won't work. So you take and you put it back in this way, and then you're going to have your medium sized pin is going to go down there. So you're going to have three pins. You have long, longer, and super long. So you're going to take your medium one and just slide it in there from the back. You don't have to tighten it yet, just slide it in place. Okay, that one is slid in place. And now, the way I like to work sometimes is just do, of course, opposite of how we took it apart. But now what I'm going to do is just put everything back in and we'll tighten it up all at once. So now, let's go ahead and put our outer tie rod back in. And remember, the outer tie rod and the shock screws were identical. So grab one of those, and you're going to take your outer tie rod and get that hollow ball lined up and get it back in there, just like that there. Okay, and get it started if you like. So now you've got that in there. Let's go ahead and get our shock line back up where it needs to be. So we'll grab the other screw that was for the shock. Now, take a look here. You take a look at where your shock is on your other arm. Your shock's on the inside hole. So we're also going to go back with the inside hole. So you may have to move your tire back to let that suspension relax. So you're going to take and put your shock back in where it belongs. And these can be a little pain to line up sometimes. It's a matter of getting that hollow ball in the right spot. There it is. We'll take and put that back in. We'll give it a twist. Okay. And now we're going to go ahead and put in our upper arm. Upper arm only goes one way. You can't, it won't go in backward because it's meant to fit around that shock. The width at the bottom and the top are opposite. So you got two pins left over in you now, right? Your long one is going to go on the top. So it's going to go on just like this. You just fish it around that shock, and you're going to put your front pin in. Just like that. Push it through. Don't have to tighten it. Now you're going to go ahead and put in your outer upper A-arm pin. The last one you have left. There. You got that all going back into place now. So now we're going to go ahead and tighten all this stuff up at one time. So go ahead and grab your 2.5. Let's tighten up your upper inner pin. Hold that arm because it's going to want to move when it tightens. Get it snug. Now you're going to move over and tighten your upper outer. Okay. Now we're going to tighten the lower on the back side right here. Okay. Now chuck up your 2. Let's tighten up your shock and your outer tie rod. Outer tie rod right here in the knuckle. Okay, just snug. Be careful. Now your shock. Snug it up. Now, all that is back together, guys. Okay, now we just need to get our front bumper back on. So we had that set aside and we had our 3 screws back in there. Let's just go ahead and dump those 3 screws out on the table. And let's go ahead and put this back in place. So we know we have 2 screws that go here, and we have that longer one that goes up here. So you may have to push down on this a little bit, flex it. This here has a slot that has to go inside, right inside here. So flex that down. You see how it went inside there? Alright, now we're going to chuck our 2.5 back up. And we're going to put it up here in the top. That's good enough. Now let's go ahead and put our other 2 in. They go right here, right there, right there. See there? So I'm going to go ahead and drop those in place. Now to get them started, you may need to wiggle around on that skid plate just a little bit. And these just went right in there. Snug those up. Those are tight. Alright, we got the bumper back on. We got our half shaft changed. Everything's back like it was. Let's go ahead and put our tire back on. Before you put that tire back on, I really recommend put you a little bit more Loctite on there. You can't hurt anything. So I'm going to put a little dribble on there. And the reason I say is because the inside of this wheel, of course, is plastic. That wheel hex is plastic. If it comes loose on you, it tears up that wheel hex and strips it out, and then it destroys your wheel. So here's the stripped out one off my XMAXX. That's what happens when the wheel comes loose one too many times. And they do sell upgraded billet ones or aluminum ones. So you got that done. Be sure your hex is lined up. Be sure you have your little red cap in there. And then chuck up your 8 and snug her back up, guys. And that's it. If you've taken off more than 2 tires at a time, you see how they got an arrow on them? Arrow points to the front of the truck. They're directional. So we'll move these little sledgehammers out of the way. And that's it, guys. She's all back together. Nothing rattles. Good to go. We'll put his shirt back on so he can go out and have some fun. Guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope this video helped you. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. Remember, all my MAXX videos will be in a MAXX playlist. Next, we're going to change a axle half shaft on the rear. Again, we're only going to do one side because they are the identical job on both sides, so there's no need for me to make this long video. I show you guys how to do one. You do both. You go out and play. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm going to get this back one done for you now.